The Birmingham public do not want a Speedway team. How are they going to sell season tickets next year? I am quoting a poster on the Birmingham Forum here. Well, I have to say that I was proud of the Birmingham supporters last night. They turned out in force. They turned out despite the naysayers, and don't get me wrong, there was a good reason for saying no. Despite the poor performances, despite myself on this programme last week predicting an 18-point loss. And boy, were they rewarded. This all proved that the Birmingham public do deserve Speedway, do want Speedway. It's over to you now, Mr. Tully. Let's not repeat the mistakes of previous years, please. The Birmingham public will support you if you give them something to support. Also, a quick word for Porky. Did a good job last night. Only in Speedway. Good evening, everybody. How are we all?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Obviously, we're going to start with last night's performance. I mean, it's. I would imagine Ipswich people are going. They've won one match in 15 matches, and they're supporting like they won the league. But it's just the way it goes.
The last match they won was against the same team.
Was against the same team. Yeah. And you know, you've got to say they were a depleted team.
Mm-hmm.
However, Richard Lawson did very good for them.
Always rides Perry Bar well, Richard Lawson.
So, you know, Cameron Heaps possibly was the little weak link there for
Danny
them.
King was poor, wasn't he?
Danny King was a bit poor.
He's not had a great season, though, Danny.
No, he hasn't. And he knows how to ride Perry Bar. Not sure what's going on there. Hopefully, I mean, I love Danny King. He's one of the good guys. So I hope he has a better season next year.
Mm-hmm.
Be great if he's riding for us. But anyway, that's by the by. The first thing is you have to say, what a crowd last night.
Yeah, well, I mean, bank holiday meetings are all you always feel there's going to be a better crowd than that. You know, the old saying of a bumper crowd, and it certainly was a bumper crowd, to be fair. Obviously, there was a lot of Wolverhampton fans came over, of course, but I don't think that was that heavily swayed the numbers. I think there was a lot of interest in the meeting, and I think, you know, really and truthfully, you know, the Birmingham public, I think, deserve that because you know, they've had to put it with so much rubbish over, not just over this year either, over the previous 2 or 3 seasons, and that was it was a real gutsy performance because again, you know, Birmingham obviously fell behind during the meeting, and as they've done so many times, you know, over the last few years, they've just capitulated, but they didn't. They fought back last night, and that's got to be something that I think is going to be. You know, it still doesn't obviously eradicate the fact that it's been a bitterly disappointing season. You know,
awful.
That's got to be.
Awful.
You know, you've got to face. You've got, you know, one meeting doesn't mean that it's suddenly been a fantastic season. It hasn't been, and as you've said, they have got to learn lessons. And next season, I think next season is a massive season for Birmingham Speedway. They have to get the team right. They can't afford another season of losing nearly all their matches like they've done for the last 2 years.
Absolutely not. So we're talking about mistakes. Let's sort of elucidate some of those mistakes if we can. Obviously, the biggest mistake was not getting the team right in the first place.
There were mitigating circumstances, admittedly. Obviously, the team not declaring until quite late on when everybody else was halfway down the road building their teams. But again, I think, you know, there were question marks certainly over the top 2 riders. I think there were question marks over them straight away. One in particular who obviously wasn't there last night. So
yeah, I had his best night last night. He scored 8 points. Sort of makes a proof, really, of what was going wrong for a lot of the season, I think. Before we go any further, it's very remiss of me, I should say, thank you to So-Called Studios for sponsoring the Speedway Tavern.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Another 5 seconds, he would have got a fine. So.
Yeah, we get a 10-second rule, I think.
Yeah.
We'll implement that every week.
Okay. So getting the team right in the first place, as you say, very, very big, deep mitigating circumstances because they didn't know they was running until really, really late. Hopefully that's different this year. My understanding is that they're already making plans.
It's not setting concrete at the moment that they're going to run. I think it's worth saying that. There's obviously decisions that have got to be made behind the scenes. I think a lot of it is depending on whether the greyhounds are there next year, which the stories I'm hearing suggests they are going to be, but until obviously something's down on paper confirmed, then it's still a little bit up in the air. But I think cautious optimism is really the thing for Birmingham at the moment in terms of running in 2025.
Sorry, are they making plans for Nigel?
Wow. I mean, come on.
Come on, get in there.
That's not bad. I've just passed you some information that we can't share.
All right, okay.
Did you? So is my writing really bad? So
that never happened, did it?
So other mistakes that they made through the season, I think, for me, the biggest one, the glaring one, is not holding their hands up and going, sorry, Mr. Pavlichki, we don't need your services anymore. For me, getting rid of Zach Cook and not getting rid of Pavlichki at that time was probably the biggest mistake that they've made. Thoughts?
I think with the benefit of hindsight, yes. When the decision was made, I wasn't particularly surprised because I had heard stories floating around. But you certainly can't fault Zach Cook's performance since he came back to Birmingham.
No,
I mean, last night obviously he was the match winner. Ultimately, last night it was a terrific ride in Heat 14 to round up Troy Batchelor. I mean, Batchelor, to be fair to him, and I'm not Batchelor's biggest fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he was obviously trying to slow the race down as well.
He did try to slow the race down. Yeah.
And nearly pulled it off as well. I mean, Jordan Jenkins was all over Zach Cook's back wheel for the first couple of laps. And then suddenly, where he got that from, I presume he must have been watching Freddie. Because then he followed exactly the same line.
Exactly the same line, yeah.
And
it was... I mean, the things to say about that is it meant something to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could see that he wanted to get the win for the team and for the fans.
He would have had a big decision to make when Birmingham came back in for him. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
He said so. Hasn't he?
I mean, obviously he'd been chopped a few weeks earlier, so But at the end of the day, I suppose it's obviously money in his pocket for him. So,
but he came back as a guest and really gave his all. He's come back afterwards and again really performed well and give his all. He's not sort of shirked from it and gone, oh, well, I'll just get my payday. He's not done a Pavlichki. And I think all credit to him and big favourite at Birmingham now, I think.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, that was certainly Heat 14 ride. That'll live long. I think that'll live long in the memory.
Atmosphere and the way the crowd. I haven't heard a roar like that at Perry Bar. Well, probably since the Alan Phillips days. I'm sorry. And Martin Smolinski time.
I've said this many times that the layout. This isn't a criticism of Birmingham because obviously they can't do anything about this. But the layout of Perry Bar doesn't really lend itself, particularly the outside, doesn't really lend itself to a great atmosphere, particularly on the home straight because it's flat.
Yeah.
So the viewing isn't really great from there. But I think last night was probably the best atmosphere I've seen at Birmingham for a long time. You're probably going back to the very early years, the 2007 2008 period, when the sport came back and everybody was on a high.
Yeah. But the roar that came from the crowd after Heat 14 was
Porky played his part, to be fair. I will say that.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Obviously, Porky's obviously a Marmite figure. I mean, I don't mind Porky, to be fair. I mean, I've always,
I have on occasion criticised him, as you know, but I thought he did a really good job last night.
He knows how to get the crowd. He's got so much experience of doing this at Wolves. He knows how to get the crowd fired up.
Right.
And Ryan, bless him, I like Ryan. I think he's one of the good guys, but he's not got the same sort of personality as Porky has, and I think
I can't think of anybody that has, to be honest.
Yeah. I think you always feel with I always feel with Ryan really that when he does try to do it, I think he just tries a little bit too hard.
Funniest moment of the night though.
Not spelling
Brummies properly, as Pete Clark says Porky can't spell. Yeah.
One M?
It's Brummies.
Oh, Brummies.
Well, when he was going to do the war cry, I was waiting for him to go, Give me a W. Oh, sorry.
Where's he from? Where's he from, Porky?
I think he's Black Country, isn't
Yeah.
he?
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah,
that's
he's a
it.
proud yam yam.
That's what I
Proud
say,
yam
isn't it?
yam.
Brummies?
Brummies.
That's what I say.
Brummies, no E in Brummies, apparently. Yeah. He should do it like that. If he ever comes back, he should do it like that from now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good
I'm
luck.
presuming he lost his best, which is why he ended up wearing that shirt as well. So
Yeah.
it's certainly, yeah. But no, all credit to him. I mean, he's, as I say, he's got a lot of critics. My dad's one of them, but even he said last night he made a difference. He really did because as I say, he knows how to.
That is quite a thing because I know your dad. I mean, it's really he's gone on record as saying he really, really does not like Porky at all. But for him to,
there's a lot of There's a lot of comments on the Birmingham Facebook page about from people who said that they didn't like him before, but there's obviously last night has sort of changed their opinion of him. So
it's having a good result helps.
it did help. But he had something, as you said, he had something to work with, didn't he? Really, So
and the riders, I think, fed off it a little bit. And I think that they if I make one criticism about last night, and I am now going to make a criticism about last night, I would have expected, and it would have been nice, if at the end when we won the match, Nigel Tully came onto the centre green and said, "That one was for you." That would have made it perfect. Yeah.
Was he out on the track? Because he usually comes out on the centre green, doesn't he?
He didn't come out,
which,
no.
was maybe a bit of a surprise.
Duncan Pemberton's having trouble with buffering.
I know. There's nothing this end. Seems okay. No drop frames. CPU's fine. No.
We'll say as well, giving Chris Morton a shout out. Obviously, he's doing his bike ride from Cardiff to Rosslare at the moment. Obviously,
that's a hell of a feat. That's a long way to ride a bike.
He's got to be very, very fit to do it as well. But fair play to him. I think he did something similar last year, didn't he? I don't know whether it might have been from Bellevue to Cardiff, but this one's obviously a bit longer. So.
Shall we catch up on some of the comments?
Okay.
So we've got Elliot Hunt. Hi, Elliot. Not in his chair tonight. Evening all. Great to finally get a win to end our home league campaign. Each rider took a heat win throughout the meeting. Atmosphere was a lot better as the meeting went on. Can we hold on for the bonus point on Thursday at Ipswich? Whoa, hold on. Let's not get carried away here. We should go through the riders actually who all had moments. I mean, Leon Flint won the reserve race.
Yeah.
Michael Palm-Toft was a revelation to me.
Rode very well last night.
Really, really meant it. Felt like Zach Cook we've mentioned got the ironic and apt that he got the points that took us over the line. And thanks you for not giving us another last heat decider. Lindgren rode well.
Yeah, Freddie's got better. I've seen a few people who've said that Freddie's been a disappointment. He's maybe at times he hasn't been sort of the Freddie of that I would obviously remember from his Wolves days. But I think as the season's gone on, he's got better.
He's found that lovely outside line.
Yeah.
When.
Seen
from
him
the
do
gate.
that's that H13 ride.
Yeah.
I've seen him do that many times over the years at Monmouth. So
yeah, that was fantastic, and riding, getting a real good partnership going with Tom Brennan. I feel when we got that 5-1, he sort of ferried him around a little bit, kept the other guys off his back. But to me, that was the star of the show. Was Tom Brennan. Looked fast, looked good. Nearly got a maximum. Got the wrong gate, I think, against Richard Lawson. He really needed the outside gate, which was working well all night. But looked fast. Made a couple of passes. There was some good racing last night as well on that track. Yeah. So, all in all, you feel sorry for Ipswich a little bit. Their injury problems.
Yeah, they are decimated, aren't they? I mean, there's the argument that you could only beat what's in front of you, but I mean, to be fair, Richard Lawson, he did probably as well as Emil Sarford would have done.
I think so. Danny King was possibly the thing that That
five. He only got, I think he got 5, didn't he, Danny? So it's he's always done well when he's come back to Perry Barr, hasn't he? So.
Dave Albrighton says, why do Polish riders always chuck their dummies out when they don't want to ride here? Should fine them, wouldn't do it in Poland. The simple answer is because they're allowed to. I think that's the simple answer, isn't it?
I think they do get pressure from their own clubs in Poland as well, that they don't really want them riding in other countries in case they get injured. So.
Which I guess you can understand, but these guys are self-employed, and you can't stop them from plying their trade, really. Very good night last night. Well done to all the Brummies from Scosen, and Pete Clark points out there's 5 points from Simon Lambert.
That heat win in heat number 9, I think that turned the meeting, I thought.
And is the queue for the Rider of the Week?
Okay, well, for me, I mean, it's a cross-up between... I'm going to have to think about this. It's either going to be Tom Brennan or Zach Cook for me. Have you got any ideas?
Josh Pickering was superb in the 2 Bellevue Sheffield meetings. I think he was unbeaten in his first 5 rides at Bellevue. I think he scored 15 and 1 in the end, and then scored 9 and 2 last night. So was in excellent form. So he'd certainly be up there, and that's going to bode well for Sheffield moving into the playoffs. I mean, as I say, they've had issues as well, obviously losing Ty. But they're going to need sort of all hands to the pump, I think, in the playoffs at the moment, and it's going to be interesting to see who goes where, because obviously Ipswich are going to be vulnerable now going into the playoffs. Obviously, a lot's going to depend on who they get as guests. The one, as I said last week, I think the ones to watch out for are Leicester. Although obviously they've now lost Ryan Douglas, of course, who was supposed to be guesting last night for Ipswich, but got injured in Poland. It was quite a bad crash by all accounts there.
Rich Thomas says Pickering ROW. Not entirely sure what that means.
Rider of the Week.
Rider of the Week.
Elliot said that as well. Yeah, so obviously he saw him at Bellevue yesterday. So superb performance. He's been on fire for the last 2 weeks.
Okay. I'd like to talk about rules, and a rule that I think needs to be looked at and changed.
We've only got 40 minutes.
I might want to do one. Just because it came up last night a little bit. So we've mentioned Cameron Heaps was not particularly at the races last night, particularly early on in the meeting, yeah? And he came out in heat, whatever it was. Well, he didn't come out.
Yeah.
He
excluded for the
was excluded for... No, I don't know. I've got no way of knowing whether that was an intentional move on behalf of the management, so that that gives him a ride, as such, and then they can put their better reserve in. I don't know whether that's what, but I can guarantee that's what crossed through a lot of the minds of supporters in the...
What's that word we've used many times?
Perception. It's perception.
Yeah.
And so I think that needs to be changed. I also think, while we're on the subject, that tape exclusions need to be changed as well.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
That if they're out, they're out.
Yeah.
It's harsh, and I know we all want to see 4 riders, but it's just open to so much abuse.
Well,
and we know that it happens.
To be honest, if I was a team manager and I had a reserve that was flying, and my other reserve was in a race, and I would say to him, try and get a flyer. If you get out, great. If you don't, you touch the tapes. Don't worry about it, because we've got the other guys flying, so we'll put him in. So there's always that element, I think, as I've said, as we've seen in Speedway many times, of rules that are open to alleged manipulation, shall we say. I think that's one thing that certainly the tape touching rule, and I think the 2 minute exclusion rule as well.
We've seen it time. We've both must have seen that millions and millions of times, and let's be honest, if you're a team manager and you've got the opportunity to do something like that, you would be stupid not to.
Oh, yeah.
Can't
tell me that it hasn't crossed some team managers' minds in the past.
Yeah, so absolutely. So I think it just needs to be tightened up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was that. Jeff Daniel says Brennan was very a poor guest for Sheffield on Monday at Bellevue. Scored 4 points, only beat Bloodurn. Something must have changed for Monday night. Surprises me because he rides Bellevue very well, obviously.
Yep.
But, anything could have happened. It could have been an issue with the bike or who knows. It's very unlike him.
I think in what's been a poor season for Birmingham, he's been the big star in point, hasn't he, really? I do think it's done him good getting away from Bellevue for a year. I still wonder whether maybe Dan Bewley wouldn't benefit from having a season away from Bellevue, riding for another club, because I think he's very comfortable at Bellevue. So
Pete Clark says Mr. Palm Tofts didn't get up very quick after his fall in Heat 14. Tactical. I mean,
we've seen that in the past.
It wouldn't surprise me. He did have a look to see where they was, and when he looked, Zach Cook was at the back.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, 2 seconds after he looked, Zach Cook was in second place, and that would have actually secured a.
Explain to me why is it tactical? Why does he think it was tactical?
Well, because if you fall over, you're going to get excluded.
Okay.
If your other rider is at the back, he's not going to get excluded.
Okay.
So he gets another bite at the cherry.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
So essentially, and that's what happened. And my God, did he use it? But he was in second place when the lights came on, and that would have been enough to guaranteed a draw at that point.
Yeah.
So maybe if it was tactical, maybe I'm glad he did. I'm glad he couldn't lift that bike up off his leg.
I didn't see you rushing over to help him.
What? It wouldn't have mattered anyway. The lights were already on red by that time.
Yeah. Would you go halfway and then pretend to pull your hamstring or something?
but I mean, playing devil's advocate, that is sometimes as a supporter you see that and you think, well, he's done that on purpose. He stayed there, and it's really annoying. Because you're on a 5-1 and then they come out and make it a 3-3.
There's no rule to say that you can't do it, but the argument is always going to be, is it in the spirit of the rules, really?
Well, that's the other argument is, how do you know whether he could be lying there? I mean, he'd got the bike on top of him.
Yeah.
He could have had a broken leg. He might have even thought, hold on, there's something wrong here, and then thought, oh no, okay. You don't. That's a really, really difficult one.
I think any rider that will tell you if a bike lands on them, they are very, very heavy.
They are
heavy.
They're going to know about it.
I know people who've acted as pushers in the pits, and they've said they were shocked at how heavy the bikes were when they're pushing them, especially with the rider on them as well. So
Elliot says Douglas was back riding in Sweden today. Should be back for Leicester on Thursday.
Okay.
So there you go. But he didn't get up very quick after his fall, and it could possibly have been tactical.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it happen time and time again. It's great when it happens for you. It's awful when it happens against you.
I suppose it's the same like in football. Penalty decisions. You know what I mean? It wasn't a penalty unless it was. Yeah.
But of course, in football now, you've got the old dreaded.
There you are.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, which was supposed to make it better and possibly
nothing like that could ever go into Speedway, could it?
Well, I was just thinking that. I'm thinking how could it? I mean, what decisions could there be that would need? Obviously, the biggest one is if a rider pushes another rider off, or did he push a rider?
That's just give me an idea for my most ridiculous question later. So.
Okay. Don't forget.
Don't
forget. Like you forgot to look at YouTube.
Simon Corbett just said if they do it in Poland, they get a red card.
But how do you judge that?
Yeah,
I suppose referee's decision is fine, like in other sports.
Jeff Daniel says Lampard has been riding for Torrens under-24 team today and riding again tomorrow for them. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, you reckon that people had seen him and he did look ill?
I think he scored 2 points for Torren on Sunday, I think.
I mean, the one thing I will say about Lampard, he's been ever present.
He's been ever present, and he's one rider I think who has put a lot of effort in every time he goes out on the track.
So he missed last night, but other than that, he's been ever present. So
I think he's definitely worth persevering with if Birmingham do come back.
I do. I think because he's what's his average going to be? See, this is both perfection and danger.
Yeah,
I think pretty much you've got Cook, you've got Brennan, you've got Lampard. I think they're all on false averages.
Yeah,
I think they're on false averages because where they've been forced to ride in the team.
Yeah,
that's great for next season if we get them back.
Mm-hmm.
It also makes them attractive to other clubs.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes.
You get to the end of every season, there's always one rider that everybody thinks, crikey, he's a bargain on that average, and there's a big scramble for him. So whether it pays off is another matter, because essentially, I mean, every new signing is a gamble, isn't it? Every time you sign a rider, it's a gamble, because there's no guarantee that it's going to work. So
Elliot says that Lampard's not riding Thursday either, and we have got Antivuelas booked in, and I mean, good rider.
I was impressed with him when he rode at Peribor a few weeks ago. So.
And RR for Pavlichki. Right, let's just throw this out there. Can Birmingham get the bonus point again against Ipswich? That's a no.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah,
it's going to be tough. They won last night, but it is only 4 points. Ipswich is a completely different track to Peribor in terms of size and shape.
Absolutely. Don't care is really. Last night was.
It would be a fantastic way for them to end the league season if they could get something. Even if they could go there and win, it would be a real big statement if they could do that. Just gives everybody a bit of a burst going into the winter that maybe things can be.
Okay, so Dave Twine's brought up an interesting comment here, which is something I've spoke about before, I believe. Somebody said this week, why only one official at matches? Most sports have 3 or more. Just one pair of eyes, no good. Well, I've always thought that Speedway should have possibly trainee referees that are in training, one on each bend, to help inform the referee, so the referee can do almost a VAR thing, or like they do in rugby.
Yeah.
Right? Did he touch him? Just ask a specific question. Did the rider in red touch the rider in yellow, or did he take his line, or was he in front at that point? Whatever it is the referee needs to know to make his decision.
Yeah.
I've always felt that would be good. It would be good training for referees in training. I don't know whether we have got any referees in training, of course. I guess they would have to be paid. That might be.
That's going to be always going to be the issue. It's always going to come down to who pays for it.
Yeah, but I've always thought that would be. Just on walkie-talkies, right, I need to know this piece of information. So they're not there to make decisions. They're there to give the referee any information that he needs at that particular moment to help him make his decision. One thing that's good this year, in the tracks that do it, and they don't all do it, by the way, is the transponders.
Yeah,
because then that takes the guesswork out over who crossed the line first.
Yep.
Which and in some tracks, Birmingham being one of them, the line of sight is not the best for working that out. Everybody has been missing Tongate Kurtz again, says Simon Corbett.
Yep.
I mean, that's an ongoing saga as well, isn't it? But yeah, I do think that there would be sort of like linesmen, in a sense.
I think they're called referees' assistants now, aren't they? Not linesmen, so
something like that. Yeah.
Off shout box, Browne has said there should be no handicap or reserve replacement for a tapes infringement. An exclusion should be an exclusion. Full stop.
I agree. I would even go a lot further than that. I'm fed up of riders being called back. Michael Palmtoft, I don't believe he moved yesterday in the Heat 2, and it was called back. And I can get a good view from where I stand. I can see the movement of the hit of the bike. If they don't touch the tapes, it's fine. Don't get called back then, does it? Yeah, and okay, you will get some that try to get flyer, and some will succeed. Good luck to them.
You've got to strike a happy medium, haven't you? Because we don't want to go back to what they had in the 70s, where people were just
we don't. But if they touch the tapes, you're excluded.
Personally, I think if you want to move, you move. If you want to stay still, as long as you don't touch the tapes. Ultimately, a lot of it was gamesmanship, wasn't it, from riders?
The best one at that, of course, was Mr. Major.
Yep. Who then got out-majored by Sazakil, of course. Sazakil, if you watched that run-off, Sazakil didn't even stop, did he? So he just...
I think there was a little bit of possible coercion with the ref.
It was in Poland as well, wasn't it? So.
But yeah, anyway, that's old news. Right, I think we've done rule changes to death, and unless anybody else has got any rule changes out there, and we've done what was a fantastic night for Birmingham. Should say as well,
it would be remiss to say congratulations to Leicester Lawn Clubs, because of course they've won the NDL after a 47-43 win at Oxford on Sunday. Still got a 100% record this season, and of course winning back the championship that they last held in 2022. Of course, they missed out to the Oxford Chargers last year. So Leicester again, a very, very strong record in recent times in the National League. And
so Dave Twine asked the Brady Kurtz. So we go back to Simon Corbett first. Brady Kurtz has broken ribs and had to go to hospital after the afternoon meeting. So fair enough. Okay. Dave Twine, our bike's too fast. 2 more riders out injured for the rest of the season. So I can't pronounce that name. And Kai Thompson. Is there more injuries now than there was before? I don't think so. I can remember.
I remember a few years ago when we had Cribby on the show, and he said himself, in his opinion, the bikes now they're like rocket ships, and it's okay on a big track like Bellevue or Sheffield when it's all out power, but when you come to a smaller track, sometimes they
I'll you off.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, when you compare it to when I started watching Speedway, the number of times now you see riders fall off unchallenged seems to be a lot higher than it was back in the early 90s.
When I go back a bit further than you, and I can remember that sort of stuff happening all the time.
Yeah.
So are bikes faster? Are they faster?
Yeah, okay. Without doubt.
There's no limit then.
Well, obviously the laydowns were the big things, weren't they? Which obviously Barry Briggs, he was pivotal to bringing in the laydowns, and it's interesting that Briggo said himself since that he regrets doing that now, because he felt that bikes have got too fast too quickly. They would have got faster over a period of time anyway with the advance of technology, but obviously the exit from the upright engines and the move on to laydowns has sort of made them very, very quick. And I think a lot of tracks that are built now tend to be big tracks, don't they? So you don't get many tracks that are built now that are small in size. So
there was talk a few years ago of having the bikes rev limited, wasn't there?
Yeah.
But that nothing seemed to have happened.
Yeah, there was. I know Chris Van Stratton's talked about the possibility of standardising equipment, but that which was, I think, was more done a suggestion really to sort of save on spiralling costs of maintenance and things like that. But nothing ever really came of it. So
the problem with something like that is it has to be standardised over all leagues.
Yeah,
can't see that happening.
Yeah.
Jeff Daniels Kurtz rode with cracked ribs against Sheffield due to his fall in pole on Sunday. Had difficulty breathing after the match, went to hospital for checks. Missed Sheffield later at night. Also missed the the Swedish playoffs tonight. So there you go.
Dave Twine says yes. At the moment there are 11 out for the season. That's a loss. There does seem to have been a lot of injuries this year, I have to say.
We seem to get injuries every year, but not quite so much this year. Seji's, we should say get well soon to Seji.
That looks a nasty one. Obviously, we saw Emils crash a few weeks ago at Sheffield, which looks horrible. How he got up and walked away from that, I'll never know.
I'll put another one out there as a counter to that. Do we get more injuries because people are more prepared to put it out there because of the air fences?
Yeah, I have heard some people suggest that with the air fence, it's not like the old days when you went board fences or
the consequences,
or in Exeter's fence, the Exeter's case, the steel
one. Yeah,
You wouldn't fancy hitting that at 70, 80 miles an hour, would you? So?
No. So,
and then fly over it and end up in somebody's back garden. So.
You would hope that things, and I think it's true actually that the injuries that we get now tend to be. You don't get the massively serious injuries that you used to get back in the 70s and 80s and probably even in the 90s before air fences sort of came in everywhere. You don't get things like Jeanette Cudrunner getting caught on a pole, not a riding pole, an actual pole, and getting impaled by it and things like. You don't tend to get those sorts of things happen anymore. So
I don't know whether anybody's ever read Eric Gunnarsson's book My Two Lies. If you've never read it, it's an incredible book. Obviously he talks about the
Yeah, you're going to borrow it me now, aren't you?
Well, it's available if you want to borrow it. So I definitely recommend it if you can get hold of it. He talks about his career in Speedway and then the second part of his life, which of course was after his crash. And it does start off with the phrase, "I was nearly 110," and that was reference to how many riders had been killed at that point in the history of Speed, and it was about 109.
Wow.
And that's from 1928 to when Eric had his crash, which was 89. Right. So, I think there was a period in the 50s and 60s where you generally didn't go a couple of weeks without a fatality somewhere along the line, did you? So,
a bit like Formula One at that time as well. So things. There are improvements, but when you think about the number of teams that there are in the leagues and the fact that riders are doubling up across those teams as well, 11 is quite a lot when you think about it on those terms, isn't it?
Yeah. We've said this before, though, haven't we? There should really be somebody at the BSBL that's sort of making notes of these and sort of having a look at stats as to see where these crashes are happening, if they're happening at particular tracks, if they're happening in particular circumstances at particular tracks as well.
Data.
Yeah.
Somebody should be collecting data.
Yeah. Besides for anything else, really, you would think it would be compliant with health and safety officials. So,
I had a question that popped into my brain last night. I've started watching matches and collating a little bit during the match which gates are working better. It's not something I never used to do, but I've started doing it a little bit more. But, I mean, it's a bit easier to do it in the Birmingham programme because they give you a slot at the bottom to actually do it. But I started doing that, and it was very, very noticeable to me that you needed to be in 3 and 4. That was favourable.
Heat winning stats for gates, I think, are a little bit misleading because it doesn't necessarily, the rider that's made the best start doesn't necessarily go on to win the race. So.
I actually didn't do it. I did it on who got out the gate. Yeah, and who basically I'm looking at who gets to bend 3 first because I don't think the gate finishes until you get to bend 3. Because you make decisions going round bends 1 and 2. That's my take on it anyway. But I just wondered about this, and I thought, do teams actually employ anybody to look at that over a season, look at that over a match, to make recommendations, or are they just doing it by what the riders say? Well, gate 4's working really, what they're saying. Yeah, be interesting to know whether that would be something worthwhile a team collecting stats on,
Well, gate 4 tends to sort of drop off over the meeting, doesn't it? Because of course everybody rides on the outside after the, everybody, you got the rides on the inside line, but nobody rides on the inside of the track during the races, does it?
It was consistently the best gates were 3 and 4 yesterday. Consistently, even to the point that I was so glad we didn't get to Heat 15 because I knew that Ipswich had choice of gates, and they did choose. Gates 3 and 4.
2 and 4.
2 and 4, sorry. Yeah, gates 2 and 4. And yes, they did win that Heat 15. It was a 4-2, I believe, to them, if I remember right. So, just interesting, popped into my head yesterday, and I wondered, so I don't know whether Lawrence is out there or anybody else. Is that something that teams actually actively collect? And if not, why not? And would it be something that would be a good idea?
There's got to be somebody doing
it. Fred Graham, I'm normally positive about Speedway, but the Championship League this year has been very disappointing with so many weeks without matches. This has to change to make it better for existing and potential new supporters. We at Glasgow have only had 5 home meetings in 13 weeks since the beginning of June. Has to change. there's only two ways of changing it: condense the season because there's less teams, or get more teams in the leagues, which is very, very difficult. I mean, it's still in August, and Birmingham's season has finished.
Yeah.
Because it has been condensed in the top league very much to make way.
Essentially, the August bank holidays generally seen as being the last, is when you have the last league matches, isn't it? Because obviously the idea is that the playoffs are ready for September, which is good. You know, I mean, obviously we've had so many years of having the playoffs shunted into the last week of October, and then you're in the whim of the weather then.
Snow.
And I think also a lot of what happens at teams is that they look at, okay, so this rider's going to be in Poland this week and he's going to be such and so, and then they sort their fixtures a little bit around that as well, which is understandable because you want to keep your riders at your track riding for you.
But I think the championship needs looking at.
Yeah.
I felt this last season. I think, I mean, have any Birmingham fans missed? I know they've had a bad season, but have that many Birmingham fans missed the championship?
No, there's been much better racing, and we've had better crowds, better riders. ML Saifutinov, Ty Woffenden, etc., etc. So I wouldn't want at this point. I wouldn't want to drop back down into the championship. Let's put it that way. One thing that you could do, I'm just putting this out there as a thing, Glasgow could run in the National League as well. They'd give them more meetings.
Edinburgh run in the National League, don't they? So.
I mean, that's just off the top of my head as an idea. Whether Glasgow Public would support that, but at least gives you more speedway and more regularly.
Yep.
But the other thing about this, it's a peculiarly speedway sort of state of mind that you should have a match every week. Doesn't happen in football. It's generally one. You usually have one this week and then away next week.
That's away. Yeah.
So
except in the lower leagues.
The lower leagues sometimes there's 3 matches a week.
3 matches a week. Yeah.
But so it is peculiarly a speedway phenomenon in that.
Yeah.
I can't say phenomenon.
I struggle to say it sometimes, so I'm not going to say it now.
Okay. So just put that out there. Right. Oh gosh, I've just seen the time.
Yeah, I think we need
got time to quickly talk about. We've got a Grand Prix.
We have. Yeah, we'll do our prediction league first. Get that done, and then obviously we'll look at the GP. So.
Okay. Good stuff. I'll get that up.
Mr. Nichols made a great comment about Sheffield track last night after the crash. Deep shall ride the next, or have two. No, that's sorry. It's missed.
Yeah, sorry.
Mr. Nichols made a great comment about Sheffield track last night after the crash. Deep shell around the outside of the track, could not see where the fence actually starts. I think if you look at Emil Saifutin's crash, that was predominantly caused by that because he was all over the place.
One of the things we do at Birmingham is pull the shale away from the fence.
Well, it has to be pulled away, doesn't it? Because it's obviously the kickboards have got to be kept clean because when you're out on the track, especially if you don't know the track very well, you need to know where it is, where the track stops and the fence starts. So it seems obvious, but the speed they're going at as well.
Okay then. So what's the scores on the doors?
Really unfortunately, there was a lot of fixes. So again, it's not easy to see. Unfortunately.
Well, what are the movers and groovers? Who's made movement and?
Well, I think Elliot has pulled a couple of points back at the top on Simon. So and Mr. Browne is now the lowest placed Speedway Tavern presenter in the stable.
He's where he should be.
Yeah.
Everything's right with the world. Despite me predicting an 18-point loss to Birmingham.
Well, you did predict an 18-point loss as well, didn't you? So.
Oh, well. Well, then, should we get on with it?
Yes. We start with me this week.
Go on then.
Just in case anybody's, just a quick one in case anybody is struggling to read it. Simon 166, Elliot 161, Rich Thomas 159, Dave Twine and John Bird 155, Philip Gray 153, Gordon Gamble 153, me I'm down to 8th now 152, Nick Skippy Matthews 151, So it's still close in the middle there. I think you've got 142 and Chris has got 139.
139.
All the way a
3
little bit.
points, that's quite a big gap, really.
It is between. It is down at that bottom end.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so the first match is tomorrow night, a Wednesday night in the Premiership. It's a bit of an unusual one. You can tell it's coming to the end of the season, can't
Yes.
you? Kings Lynn against Bellevue.
Okay. It's up to me, not you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Bellevue by 4 points.
Kings Lynn by 2.
It's going to be close.
Kings Lynn by 6.
Okay, and Kings Lynn are in action the following night at home as well. Obviously, they've got a bit of a backlog on their fixtures at home, haven't they, with all the call-offs they had earlier in the season.
Yep.
They've got Sheffield, also in the Premiership.
And that's up to you.
Sheffield by 10.
Sheffield by 8.
Sheffield by 6.
Okay. Also in the Premiership on Thursday, Oxford against Leicester.
Where that's up to you, Chris.
Oxford by 4.
Oxford might have a bit of a point to prove here.
Mm.
I'm going to say go a draw. No, I'm going to say Oxford by 4 as well.
I'll go Leicester by 2.
Mm-hmm.
They've been close, Oxford, haven't they? There's no home track advantage there, is there? So.
They have been close.
Yep. Next one is Ipswich against Birmingham.
It would come to me, wouldn't it?
Yep.
A lot depends on who's riding, of course. But I'm going to go with. I'll say. How many did we win by last night?
4.
4. I'm going to say Ipswich by 4 then. Let's have a superheat.
Okay. I'll go Ipswich by 6.
I'll go Ipswich by 12.
Okay.
Okay.
Next up is Scunthorpe against Oxford in the Championship.
That's up to you, Matt.
Scunthorpe by 10.
Scunthorpe by 12.
Scunthorpe by 10.
Okay. Next up on Friday in the National League, Bellevue against Edinburgh Academy.
And that's up to you, Chris.
Bellevue by
See, I've just sat here and realised that if I just say exactly the same scores as you, I can't. You can't overtake me. But I'm not going to do
unless I
that.
come after you.
Bellevue by 10.
Bellevue by 16. Okay. Also on Friday in the Championship, Edinburgh against Poole.
That's down to me, isn't it? Edinburgh versus Poole. Poole by 4.
Poole by 10.
Paul by 8.
Okay. Glasgow against Redcar is the next one. It's on Friday as well.
That's up to you, Matt.
Redcar by 4.
Redcar by 10.
Glasgow by 2.
Not on a vintage season of the Glasgow,
No.
really.
No.
Scunthorpe against Oxford is the next one. That's in the National League.
And that's up to you, Chris.
Scunthorpe by 4.
Now meet Oxford week. Scunthorpe by 8.
Oxford by 6.
Okay, interesting.
Okay. Then on Saturday, the second leg of the BSN semi-final, Workington against Poole.
Has this BSN thing been a worthwhile?
I suppose it's extra matches in the Championship because obviously there's not as many league matches now with there not being as many teams.
Okay, Workington versus Poole up to me.
I do think it should be an early season competition and the final should have been long before now. But
Yeah. I'll say Poole by 6.
Poole by 10.
Workington by 2.
Okay.
Okay, you're just trying to get past me, aren't you? Just try.
Let's just say as well, wish obviously on Saturday, of course, at Leicester, it's the Women's British Open final. So good luck to all the competitors in that one. There's a lot of big push, of course, in recent times for female speeder riders in this country, isn't there? So they seem to be doing a lot of work on that at the moment. Next one on Saturday, Plymouth against Oxford. That's in the Championship.
And that's up to you, Matt.
Plymouth by 4.
Plymouth by 2.
Draw.
Okay. Wish Richard Lawson's good well as well at Poole because it's his testimonial on Sunday. So good luck with that one, Richard. Monday, Knockout Cup final, first leg, Sheffield against Ipswich.
That's up to you, Chris.
Sheffield by 6.
Ipswich usually do quite well at Sheffield, strangely enough.
Yeah.
And Sheffield not so good at Ipswich.
Yeah.
So I think it would be interesting if score of his Sheffield win by 8, so I'm going to say that.
There you go, Sheffield by 12. And the last one, Kings Lynn against Leicester. That's in the Premiership as well.
Kings Lynn have not got a great run in, have they?
No.
Leicester by 8.
Leicester by 4.
Leicester by 6.
Okay.
Okay.
We should fixtures then.
We should mention next Monday's meeting.
British Youth Championship, of course.
Youth Championship.
Was obviously staged at Perry Bar last year as well. We saw some good racing in that as well.
didn't we?
And these are the stars that obviously we will be watching. 10, 15 years in the future. Obviously racing for your club. So
Maybe not 10, 15 years in the future, because who who won the thing last year.
Ashton Boven.
And he's
And he's had again, that shows that there's some great young talent coming through, and hopefully we'll see some more of them on Monday night. So hopefully a few people get down there to watch that one.
So if you can go back to before the predictions, there was a couple of things that came up, and just a little bit further, I think. And okay, you was right. So Fred Graham says Berwick's season finished at first week in August. I mean, that's
ridiculous, isn't it?
Stuart Dixon mentioned this was not good enough. Agree. Condense the season: home 1 week, away the next, or have 2 home and 2 away as per Premiership. And it was Lidsey who crashed, says Jeff Daniels.
Sheffield as well.
Exactly the same place as Saifutinov.
Yep.
That's always been a bit of a thing at Sheffield, that they do have the track really deep.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got a lot of surface shale, a lot of area, so
it is a fast track as well. Anybody who's been there, you have to go out there. And
I love it. I mean, it's a great track.
I like Sheffield. I've got a lot of time for Sheffield as a club. They've got some great, some Sheffield fans. They've got a good away following as well. They always.
I mean, we should say that they do really need to get a better better presenter, but. That's by the way.
Not very nice, is it?
And don't forget to get your ride of the week in.
Especially if he's standing behind you.
Yes. Rider of the week. I've got to choose, haven't I? I'm going to actually. I'm going to say Zach Cook.
I'll say Josh Pickering.
Mm-hmm. I think Pickering's got it this week.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Have we got time for GP?
We have,
yes, we have got time for GP.
It is Wroclaw, of course. It returns to Wroclaw. Stays the first ever Grand Prix there back in 1995. And, of course, the last time a Grand Prix was staged there was 2022, which was won by Dan Bewley, who won that GP a couple of weeks after he won at Cardiff. Who won the last GP this year? Dan Bewley.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, he does ride for Wroclaw, doesn't he, in the Extra League. So he's going to fancy his chances of doing well. And, of course, as we know, he gets to finals, he wins them. So,
I was going to say, is there any truth in the rumour that from now on, when Dan Bewley gets to a final, the other riders just pick lots through, come second?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a great track, Wroclaw. I mean, we had a fantastic World Cup there last year.
Mm-hmm.
Got so close to getting ending that long road for a gold medal.
Don't bring that back up again.
Should be a good one, of course. We know. Bartos Smarsley didn't have a great night at Cardiff, but really and truthfully...
it's his to lose, isn't it?
They're right. I mean, Robert Lambert's obviously in second place now, but still got a 21-point deficit to make up with just 4 rounds to go. It's not an insurmountable, but...
I mean, I wonder a little bit about Bartok Smartlick's performance and whether he just decided he didn't want to get injured. He'd had a bit of a...
He's not had a great run, really, since the GP... took its break at the midpoint, didn't he? After the Gores off GP. I mean, he didn't have a great Speedway World Cup either, did he? So
no.
I think he tends to find it more difficult when he's racing in team events, doesn't he? So he's because he's very, very single-minded as a rider. He'll just he goes on the track where he wants to go. If somebody else is in the way, tough. So very much in the Nicky Pedersen role. Probably not as
ruthless.
Nicky. I mean, listen. At the end of the day, if you're going to be a top rider, you've got to be ruthless. I can't think of many world champions over the years that I've watched that haven't been pretty ruthless on the track. They need to be. So the only one probably I can think of would be Janne Pedersen, but he was one of those riders that didn't really need to be ruthless because he was so small and so light and so quick.
Yeah,
he could get himself out of trouble.
So thoughts on who do we think? Let's mention a few people. Let's just start with Freddie Lindgren.
Well, the last few, it seems to have coincided with coming back to British Speedway, doesn't he? His form, he's up to third now in the championship. When you consider how poor a start he had to the season as well, so he's going to fancy his chances. Robert Lambert, he's got to be so desperate to get to win a Grand Prix now. And again, that as I said last week, although publicly he would have been pleased for Dan Bewley, privately he'll be gutted that he couldn't beat him in the final. Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword. But and obviously,
Dan's won 3 Grand Prix now, hasn't he? So, and you look at the performances overall in the GP. I mean, Lambert's in second place in the championship. Bewley's down in 7th, so Bewley's got a bit of work to do to get into the top 6.
You wouldn't put it past him now after that.
No, you certainly wouldn't. Dominic Cabrera as well. He could be a bit of a dark horse. I was impressed with him at Cardiff. Yeah, so, and of course you can't rule Dan Bewley out either, can you? You know, home track advantage.
I don't think you can ever rule him out.
Yeah, I presume Matt Sayanovsky will race in it, of course, as the replacement for Ty, and again that's his home track, hometown as well. So he's got to,
and he's got possibly got a little bit to prove
after all the mess of the picking the. Yeah, so he could be a spoiler. He could be a real spoiler in that GP.
Do we think that, as far as Bartok Zmarzlik's concerned, this is actually a bit of a... He needs to possibly put a bit of a marker down, otherwise... Because you know what happens, riders get confidence and think, do you know what, he's beatable.
Yeah.
Do we think he needs to put a bit of a marker down?
I wonder whether Freddie shatters a little bit of his aura of invincibility in Gorzov. Beating him in the final and in Poland, beating him on, he's... Obviously, he doesn't ride for Gorzov anymore, but that's where he's from. He rode for Gorzov for many years, knows every inch of the track. Beat him from the back in the final as well, which is unthinkable.
Absolutely.
Really.
And Dave Albrighton's made the point, it's a good one, that Zmarzlik has changed his engine tuner, of course.
Zmarzlik's in a bit of a, as I said a few weeks ago, Zmarzlik's in a bit of a quandary, isn't he? Because he's got a big lead, and he probably knows he doesn't need to do anything stupid in the last 4 rounds, but is he a rider that's capable of doing that? You can't really go in half so, can you? Because you don't want to take your foot off the gas too much. Because suddenly, if you realise that you need to get something there, it's difficult to sort of turn it back on again. So,
and Brian Reason says the British League Riders' Championship usually was one of the best meetings to look forward to. Nowadays, wouldn't be possible as less riders and teams to compete in.
I think at one stage the British League Riders' Championship was only second to the World Final, wasn't it? In a lot of cases, a lot of people said it was even stronger than the World Final was in some cases. But
now it's been watered down because very often riders go, well, I'm not going to compete in that.
Yeah. You get to them and you're going to have to take a pen to change all the riding order, haven't you, in the...
which is a great shame. I can hear the music coming on in the background, and I've looked at the time.
That's somebody's way of saying, "Shut up."
Yes,
I want to go.
We never had time for my fantastic questions. So we're going to run now. I'm going to. It's so good. I want to leave it till next week.
Okay.
You'll forget it though, won't you? Do you
No. It's on my brain all week.
Okay. Yeah, we're all surprised to hear you got one. Okay, fantastic. See you all next week. Good luck to you and your team, and have a good one. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Come and have your say.